Hello guys, welcome to the day 3 of our AMP Crash Course series. And today we are going to do the intermediate level, the second part of our development journey of what we did. So and also couple of more important things that you actually need for your development, and we'll be covering the alternatives base what you used to use normal JavaScript for, and that we'll be overtaking in this today's session. And some of you have some questions, and I'll be trying to address them as I go on. Please approve PR request. Can I use template in our project, which are available in AMP website? Yes, definitely you can use up to anything. The only requirement is that you should be able to use the 4 components that we talked about yesterday. That's the only requirement. Then till everybody joins, we shall start with our session. This is me, Aman, and your buddy to help you out with the AMP thing. And for the past couple of 1 or 2 days, I was not feeling much well, so my energy was down, and that's why I was not able to interact with you fully. But I will try to be as much as interactive and as much as energetic as I can in the today's session. And there is one thing to like do sessions in Google Meet and Teams where you can talk directly, and there is another thing in doing a live stream on YouTube, because here I only know about your emotions, whatever is going on through your comments. So just try to be put like as interactive as possible on the comments, so that I take your questions and I responded energetically. So my energy is on you guys, so let's get started. Let me zoom into the screen. Okay, so yesterday what we studied a quick recap why we studied, like why we actually need AMP. That was our first day. Then we also saw the like AMP boilerplate code. Then we implemented the validator and how to implement AMP cache. Then we went through some of the AMP components that AMP offers, and also we saw a little bit about documentation of how you can find different components of how you can become a successful AMP developer. So what is there? Like we also saw the video carousel and the social media links things for this Chico Cheese Bikes project that we were creating. And today we are going to go a little further. We are going to see how we can respond to user interaction. So user interaction is basically handled by jQuery or JavaScript, where you like do a kind of DOM event listener or action listener. So we'll get into detail about that thing also, and we'll also see how you can collect user information using forms in AMP. And then we'll elaborate what are the multiple types of different components that can make your application much more successful. So what we'll build today, we'll be building a slide out menu navigation bar, what you usually see on phones and on desktop also, a collapsible navigation bar. And we'll be building a newsletter subscriptions form, and also we'll build a fancy double image carousel with a zoom capability and also a thumbnail corresponding to that. So this is all that we are going to discuss today of how you can make these things. Oh, I forgot that there was an animation in this stupid way. So you remember like how we were combining components when we were like trying to create AMP carousel. We used the AMP carousel icon, and then we inserted AMP img inside them, and that is the way how you can create different AMP components. Now you want to like you have to be creative in this thing. If you want to create a new thing, you just need to embed anything inside an existing component, because if you are going to create a newsletter subscription form, there is no component that exists as AMP newsletter subscription form, right? And it is very tough to actually create a single component for every use case. But what you can do, you can, if you remember what we used to play with the Lego things in our like childhood, we used to combine different things to form different outcomes, like a different land. So that is what it is actually applicable in AMP components also. If you are not able to find your desired components, you can try and combine different components to actually get the desired result. So this is what we are going to implement today also, and I'm going to show you how you can combine different AMP components to get your desired outcome. Can you once tell how to submit the assignment on in GitHub, as I faced many issues today? Sure. At the end of the session, I will take you again through how you have to submit your assignment. But if you have any trouble, guys, don't wait for the session. Ask the questions or anything that you are facing on Slack, and one of our developer or a volunteer will be there to help you out with that. So in today's session, we'll be seeing how you can actually combine different components to create a desired results. So what we'll learn today, we will be seeing what are the AMP event handlers and actions. We'll be seeing what are AMP forms and AMP mustache templates. Now, I am not sure if everybody knows mustache, so I'll be explaining that with as much as simplicity as possible. So this is not a mustache like your mustache on your face. It's a different mustache, but it looks like mustache. So if you see those angular bracket, and those things are called mustache templates. And recently handlebars and JavaScript has been using it. So you can use mustaches in AMP. Yeah, well, mustaches are fully supported in AMP, and it's a standard way of communicating with data inside AMP. So first of all, handling user interactions. So why do we use user interactions? We use it for a couple of things, and most popular of them is using it for navigation. You have like kind of a tab view or maybe a sidebar that you want to insert in your website. So all these are kind of user interaction or handling event driven things where you need to listen when the person is tapping on which div, and then you have to respond with a like particular output for that thing. So in this example, we are going to use different anchor tags like UL, LI, and A. And with this, you can create an awesome looking sidebar that you can see on the right screen. And you can also use these icons, which stands for the hamburger menu and the cross icon, which are actually inside the divs of those particular things that are getting popped up. And we'll be adding an event listener to these icons so that it collapses and expands whenever the user wants it. So user interactions and events, let me know if I'm going a little fast because this is some basics and I guess most of you already know it. So I just want to, brush up your skills about these things. So, but when the actual concept on AMP will arrive, I will take it much slowly. So basically user interactions is something like when you click on a button, what happens next? If you click on the submit button, what happens next? What happens when you press the escape button? When you are swiping. So all these things are user interactions. Anything that a user does with his keyboard, mouse, or touch devices. So all these things are user interactions, and all the latest web apps are complying with all these user interactions, and they are built to actually respond to these user interactions, and that we are going to learn. So a typical example of user interactions is like, for example, if you have inserted a button, then you have on event listener, and you click like have this kind of thing, button on is equal to, and then the behavior of that thing, right? So this is what actually happens with a normal routine user interactions. So in AMP, we actually deal with this in forms of event. Everything is event triggers. You cannot put jQuery based DOM event listeners. There is a reason for that because we cannot include jQuery inside AMP because AMP restricts any custom JavaScripts. But there is a turnaround for that, and we'll be using the triggers on this thing, and we'll be learning about these things later. So this is a typical example of how you would actually do that. You will create a div, and if this contains a warning, you will display the warning inside it. Maybe you will make the default thing hidden in this. And on click, you have your document DOM model document dot get element by ID, that is warning, and then you are manipulating its class. You are turning it from hidden to true and false whenever it's clicked. So this is a typical example of how event and actions are handled in normal web framework. And if you are a little smart and you are using jQuery, you could go a little advanced, and instead of using the whole document dot get element by ID, you will be just putting the element ID, and you will be hiding and unhiding this thing. Well, in AMP, you do it differently. You don't need to include any JavaScript or jQuery library inside it. You just need to name your element with the element name that you want to give. For example, in this case, we are using div ID warning. And then on the button, you use a simple mechanism on tap is equal to warning.hide. It's as easy as this. So we are actually saving a lot of characters. You don't need to use on click. You just need to write on, and then tap. Tap is the action event listener for click or swap or like tap, which is a normal touch gesture. So for everything like that, we use tap. So somebody is actually clicking on the div. That is what tap is. Then we use these colons, and then colons actually direct to what is the trigger that you want to do. The second thing is actually the div ID that you want to use, and dot hide means that what is the manipulation action you want to run on this. So this small thing will actually hide and unhide this div ID warning that we are giving. This is how easy it is to implement even an actions in app. So this is a zoomed again version of how that thing looks like. So user interactions and events, I already explained you like how this looks like, and then there is something called as interaction, actions, and hooks. So that is one by one we are going to study in today's module. So actions can look like functions and can accept any arguments. So these are typical JavaScript kind of. If you are from JavaScript background, you might already know what are actions. You can use this on-click event listener, add some kind of run some kind of function. In this case, hide is a function, and then add parameters to it. In a similar fashion, you can have AMP actions, and you can run any kind of JavaScript job that you want to run on this trigger. So let's start with our exercise one, that is building a menu, and this will help you understand how to run an interaction, how to run an action, and this will actually lead you to a better development of your apps. So we'll be building a navigation menu, and we'll be using events and action that we just studied in order to create this beautiful looking Chico's cheese bicycles sidebar, which has a accordion based collapsible menu inside the collapsible menu cool thing. So we'll be creating this thing. So AMP sidebar is a built-in component, and you can import this from the AMP library. You can again go to amp.dev/component/documents, and you can see this sidebar thing in action. So we'll be building this sidebar, naming the sidebar as sidebar one, and we will be using different actions that can be open, toggle, or simply the sidebar one. And you can close the sidebar with close. For this example, we will be using toggle because we know that there can be two states: either the sidebar can open and or otherwise the sidebar can close. So the toggle operation will help us open and close the sidebar over here. If it's open, if it remains open, or it's closed, so it becomes open. So inverse or whatever action is going on. So this is a typical example of how you have to implement in this thing. In this case, we are using again a header. If you want to place your sidebar in header, it's not mandatory, but it's preferred to put your menu and sidebars in headers. It's a norm actually, and it's very friendly to use this kind of things in headers. So then we have created on tap listener, and we have also added a button. We haven't added the sidebar yet, and we'll be at that in the second interaction of our thing. So then we include a amp sidebar, as you can see over here. We have an amp sidebar. We have named the class as simple sidebar. So if you want to include any custom CSS rule, you will use the style amp custom and include this class as the property, and then add all the CSS properties that you want to insert inside it. Then you have the ID sidebar one. This ID is required so that our on-click action can actually detect that what div or DOM it has to manipulate. So then you have to put layout and side. These are some of the properties and attributes that you can find on the AMP sidebar component documentation. You don't need to remember them at all. Again, you just need to put the boilerplate, and the rest of the things will go inside here. Then we also put a cross in our sidebar that we are going to insert, because when the sidebar is open, somebody needs to close the sidebar, so there is a small cross. And again, on this cross we have another event listener, that is tap:/sidebar one dot toggle. So if it's closed, it becomes open, and if it's open, it becomes closed. So that's what we are going to use over here. So sorry, I couldn't make a header. Please, can you show that, not the sidebar but the header? Okay, let's go to last slide. This is a action event listener. So this is basically the trigger for opening our sidebar. We just created a header over here, and this header is implemented in the top section, of course, header like a normal header thing. Then we create a div, and we place our 3 lines over here, and then we name our project Chico Cheese Bike, so that it looks something like this. So this is the view that this particular code is generating. So a 3-line sidebar on the left, Chico Cheese Bicycle written on the right, and there is a action event listener that is tap sidebar one dot toggle. Now this is the second part of the story, AMP sidebar that we have inserted, and it has a close button, which is the representation of this thing, and everything inside Our sidebar is inside the UL and LI. UL unordered list if you are using, and then LI are the items, independent items, in which you can insert your own link. So this is a like typical menu how you will actually create. This is what it looks like. And to fix everything like in the alignment section and all that, you can use CSS to do that. Can we use section tag? I don't fully get what section tag is, so if you can elaborate, I can explain you, Mayank. So next thing, we need to include the extended component, and this is the script to include amp sidebar as the extended component, which is amp sidebar 0.1.js, and this will enable your sidebar inside this. So again, this will show some kind of accessibility issues, and then you need to go to amp validator. What is the snip in the tag? Okay, so basically snip section, whenever you will see in my presentation, that means that there is some more code over here, which is not here because of it's constraint of the screen size, but you will see in the upcoming screens the actual code that should go over here. So basically it's just a snippet of the code that needs to come over here. What is the tab index? Why it is set to 0? So basically, tab index for the sidebar you set to 0. It's an optional thing to set, and you can set it to more also. So basically, your sidebar is, of course, the first element that is on top of it. And if you don't, this sidebar tab index 0 is actually we are setting for the cross button. So we don't want anything overlapping between the cross button and the sidebar, so that the action click event doesn't go to that point. So that is why we just, this is norm to actually put the tab index as 0. If you are using a complicated menu in which multiple level of divs are involved, then you might set it to tab index is equal to 1 or 2 also. But for this use case, it's a plain div and there is nothing overlapping, so tab index can be set to 0. Yeah, so again, snip, I think I have created. It's just a snippet of code that we insert. This is not an actual code. So these accessibility issues, again, you have to see if you have fixed everything, and validation errors will show during this process, and you have to fix this time by time. So some of the things that you will actually see in the accessibility issues, that we have used div over here as on-click listener, but it's not good for accessibility because buttons are only identified as accessible triggers. So that is why you have to replace div by buttons if you want. And the other thing is that there is no interactive element from the keyboard. So these are the accessibilities that you will see. And there is a workaround and a solution for everything. So you can go through the validator again and solve these issues. Then we are going to add submenus to our sidebar. So submenus are something like you click on the photography plus sign, it opens up, and if you click on the minus sign, it closes. So this is very helpful in creating compact menus, but also have a functionality to open it up. So again, section tag is a semantic tag and defined as section in the browser. I am not like fully sure, Mayank, which context of section tag we are talking about. So maybe you can take this question to Slack, and I'll be very happy to help you on this question. So next thing is AMP side, like the collapsible menu. Unfortunately, AMP sidebar doesn't defaultly supports a collapsible menu. But here is the power of components that we are going to use. We are going to use another component called as accordion inside our AMP sidebar. So accordion is a component that you see opens and closes like this. So okay, you were talking about the section. Yes, you can use the section tag. This section tag, I forgot. Thank you, Omkar. So section tag, of course, you can use. It's a normal HTML norm. You can use header section, footers, navigation, NAV. You can use all these components. And if you have any trouble, AMP will actually give you the error that section is not allowed. Otherwise, you should. Section is actually allowed in this case. So we were talking about accordion. So accordion, if some of you don't know, it's the collapsible menu that opens and shrink like this, or maybe in this direction. So basically it's closed in default, or maybe open, one of these divs are open, but you have to close and open these kind of functionalities if you want to put. So use a component called as accordion. So AMP has a component called as AMP accordion, and this is the thing that we're gonna use. So if you're document has more than one section, the tag we were talking about. So If it contains more than one section, then we are going to replace it with the accordion, and we are going to place our accordion inside amp sidebar. And where we are going to put it, we are going to put it inside one of the li element of the sidebar. Let's look into the live code example. So this was our amp sidebar, and this was the cross button that we placed over here. Again, don't not to get confused with the snip. Snip is just an example that there is some code going over here which is not shown over here, but there is a code, somehow some code is over here. Then you have your nav, which stands for navigation. Again, a good accessibility feature to put. Then you have your unordered list, and then you have your li, the first item. And if you want to place accordion for the first item, then you have simply the li, your name of the class that you want to put, and then you insert the amp accordion inside the li item. And again, there are some attributes like layout and different attributes that you can find on the documentation. You put it inside over here. So this is an expanded version of how your accordion should look like. Again, for accordions items to behave properly, you can use a ul and li items, which are different items inside the accordions. And accordion automatically has the functionality of showing plus and minus sign, and you don't need to add a on click listener to do those things. So you can add a header or bikes, and then you can add a sub menu inside that. That's how you are going to use the accordion in this example. Again, for adding accordion as an extended component, we have to use the amp accordion 0.1.js library. We need to import this in our script tag, and this will work now. So now we are going to go to the second part. We saw how you can listen to user inputs that deals with actions like clicks or taps. And now we are going to see how you can listen to user inputs which involve something like filling in a field, choosing an option, which generally is the case with displaying form information. For example, you're creating your website with a contact form. These are the things that you will actually need. And for this example, we are going to create a newsletter subscription form. So what this newsletter subscription form should do, it should accept full name and email, and both fields in this case should be required. And if the submission fails, somehow it is not sending the information to the server, it should show an error. And if it's sending the information to the server, it should give a success feedback to the user. In non-amp pages, usually we use the form tag, and this is something that you can use in a normal HTML way, but amp has a function called as amp form. So again, some good accessibility features and good performance features are added with amp form. So you have to include amp form to create a form. So let's see how they are different. So normally your form looks like this, and you have different fields like text, combo, checkboxes, and radio buttons, and you use them to send the data. Maybe you use a post or get request to do that. I assume that you know that simple basic things about forms already, so I will not emphasize a lot about forms. But whenever the form is submitted, the page should refresh so that there is empty data again back in the form, and the data is sent to the server. So how actually, and this is again user-friendly web forms. The page shouldn't refresh when the form submitted. So all these things are there. The problem with normal form is that when you use post and get request, it actually needs to go to some kind of page if you are not using jQuery, Ajax, and things like that. So in our form that we'll be creating, we'll be using a unique way that page will not refresh, and the data will be confirmed to the user. And also helpful message like a warning or a success sign should show on the completion of this thing. Usually you will use JavaScript, but again in amp you cannot use JavaScript, so that's why we are going to implement this using the amp way of doing it. So let's see what AMP forms actually are. AMP forms again are an extended version of normal HTML form, and they are very easy. It has very easy inbuilt things about like doing normal things like doing form validation, verifying the data, submitting the data, success and warning showing, and doing all these things. It's really improvement over normal HTML forms. So AMP forms you can use instead of normal HTML forms inside your project. So AMP forms have the functionality to use it as input. Again, if we see the documentation, these are all the different attributes that are available with the AMP form tag, like submit, submit success, submit error. All these things you can use in order to show different responses. Again, you can use CSS hooks in order to stylize your form, change the way field is being shown, change the way how the overall structure is looking up, and all these things. Let's go in detail and see how does this work. So we are going to build our own subscription form. Let's imagine you have an e-commerce business, and we are going to use a simple example of using form in place of amp form. And this button should actually take the name and the email, and it should as soon as you submit, it should send the information to the form. So this is how a normal example looks like for a form. And you already know this. You have a form, method, post, and action where you want to send the information. So this will actually click and your page will be loaded. Can we custom code the validation and sanitization of input? I guess no. Yes, you can do custom validation and sanitization also. And this is a particular section I've covered in this particular presentation today. And I'll be talking about this in upcoming slides. So stay tuned with that part. So adding the extended component for AMP is easily. You just need to include the AMP form, which is a tag like a library that you are using to import other components. And this is how the example looks like for using a template. So if you have already worked with this is mustache template that you can use in order to print out the element when your form data is complete. And this is the data JSON data that is coming out of the form that you are going to use it for different purposes to show and send it to backend or do multiple things. So I don't know, whatever you want to do with the form data, you can do actually using the normal JSON structure of forms that will send the data. Can we use Firebase to store data? Of course, you can use any kind of backend. If it's a REST API, GraphQL API, any kind of API you can use in order to send the form data. So in this example, we have used handlebars to show the data. This is how the data is stored. This is how you will implement the code. And this is how the data will be generated in the HTML. This is another example. If you want to include a dynamic image, if you want to include that person's image in the form, again, you can use the templates AMP IMG structure. And instead of using SRC, the name of the URL hard coded, you can use mustache. So let me actually explain you a little bit about mustache. If you have used a backend, server-side rendering pages, you might remember that you use because I'm a kind of a PHP guy, so we use PHP Echo to print anything on the actual div model. But doing things in HTML, plain HTML and JavaScript page is a little different. So they have a new concept called as not a new, but quite good, widely used concept called as mustaches. So mustaches is doing things like using two angular brackets, and anything inside this is a variable, data variable. It can be a JSON variable too. JSON object variable. If it's a JSON object variable, then you need to use multiple dots to handle the same event. So for AMP, as far as concerned, you need to use the template tag and then include the data that you want to show dynamically according to the data that is coming from the backend. So this is how you actually implement the template way of showing data inside AMP. Again, from this code that we have written over here, this is the backend, like the code that you will actually write, and this will generate a normal, a plain, simple HTML like this. So AMP mustaches can do several things. It can be used to trace different data. If you are trying to create a calculator, it can be used to change the data on site. Also, it is used to show the data conditionally, like if you are using dark mode and light mode, all these things can be used. And it can even display unescaped HTML content. And if you use the whole template on your whole body tag, it will show anything that is getting escaped so that you can actually debug. Again, you can go to AMP mustache to find more information about this. So now we have covered almost everything. We saw how to get a trigger, and now how to send the form data using AMP forms, and how you can show and manipulate data using mustaches. And now we will be going detail and see how you can create a creative element like a lightbox. So for those of you who don't know what a lightbox is when you click on an image, it zooms in so that you can see that thing in clear. So we'll be creating a lightbox that appears in front of rest of the page. How we know that these variable used in data? Sorry, I'm not a web developer. I mean description variable. Exactly, it's something like that. So I will answer Kavya's question first. And let me show this question. So basically, normally about how you use dynamic language and a static HTML language. If you are from not from web development environment, let me think how I can explain this to you. So there are two parts of your code. One is the dynamic code that contains variables and data structures and different kind of things. Then you have normal HTML, that is the markup for generating the whole HTML page. Now, if you want to generate anything dynamic, for example, you want to show the different name of a user when that user is coming on the platform. So what you will do, you will create a template and the dynamic name will be left and replaced with this template kind of thing that we were using in app. So for this, if you want to show dynamically a name of this person over here, you will use template type and mustache. You will include the JSON object inside your markup that is coming, and use the handlebars name is an excellent. This is normal text that you have written, and during the process of this, the name will be replaced by dynamic JSON data that is coming. So this is simple. You just give go on the amp mustache example, playground example, and you will be able to see. So actually, let's go to the amp mustache example and let's see how that works in action. So again, let's go to amp.dev. Let's go to components and let's search for. So here are different examples. Let's go and check for a mustache example. I want to find a simple section so that it's easy for you to understand. So maybe check out flow. How does this look like? Let's see if it's not a big example. So yep, this is a normal looking form. Maybe you are seeing it's a little big. So basically what we have done, we have a script tag and we have application JSON inserted over here. You can include external JSON also, or maybe if you are using a backend API, you can import by writing a simple app script function to get the fetch the data from the backend. And this is how the data is coming from the backend. Again, this is a normal JSON data that is available. Now, if you want to print anything, now we know that we need to use the template tag. We have used a template tag over here. And these are item 1, item 2, item 3, which are coming back from our JSON data that we have written. So we include a mustache named as like items. This item is a variable that is coming from the JSON data we saw previously. Right over here, this is the authorization, I guess. So this is an input field, that is why we are identifying it as hashtag. And then anything that is coming over here, we are kind of dynamically showing the data just right over here. So if I apply a promo code which goes over here, it should do an action, I guess. Okay, so it has a login thing which is not working right now. Let's try to find a simple example. Yeah, star rating maybe. Okay, so this is a very cool example to see how you can actually manipulate the input field. So they have used a form, and the action XHR is taking actually them to endpoint where they are submitting the form information. Then you have field set in which you have different input field. Field set again is used for rating thing, and this is the template that we are using, and this is the error. If there is an error over here, or otherwise the data will be shown in form of rating. So you see the rating variable is right over here, and this rating variable is going as a name field from our form. So this is how mustache actually identifies what is the data inside it and how it has to display. So whenever I click a different buttons, the things will change. Now let me replace the ratings with something like, I don't know, I haven't used this before, rating plus 1. So now what should actually do? If I click on 3, it's not printing anything because it's not able to identify if rating plus 1 is a thing. So if I go and click on again rating on 4, it shows 4 stars because the input that we are field that we are giving is over here. Now to see another example, let's change the value of 5 to something like 9. Now, what should actually happen when I click on 5? This input field rating should return the value 9 inside rating, and the rating should show here 9 stars. So you see, there are 9 star over here. This is how the mustache template works. Again, you can go to am mustache and look closely into this of how these things works. This is very important if you are trying to manipulate user data. Second question is Mayank Goyal from Mayank Goyal. What is an escaped HTML? So remember, like whenever you are writing an HTML and you forgot to close a tag, that is called an unescaped HTML, and this is where you have to apply some kind of common sense. Like if you want to test out elements, sometimes you can't see it. So if you enclose everything inside the template, this unescaped HTML will be shown clearly, and you can see what is the error going over here. So it's just a small trick, not a code implementation that you have to do. So let's go back to our slides. So we were talking about adding a lightbox. You have already cleared the basic what a lightbox is. So we are going to put an element that is named as amp image lightbox. So again, this is a component available in amp library, and we are going to put amp image inside img inside the amp image lightbox action, so that whenever you click on the amp image lightbox, it opens it as a full image. So this is the element that comes as bare minimal amp image lightbox, and you have ID of the lightbox, layout, whatever you want to set it, all the attributes, and this is the image tag that you particularly use in order to show down images. So next thing, so if you see closely, this over here right now doesn't has anything. We have just put the ID over here, and on the amp img, what actually should happen is whenever somebody clicks on this image, as you can see in our Chico cheese bicycle example, whenever somebody is clicking on this image right over here, it is zooming in and opening this component called as amp image lightbox. So for this thing, we have created two different HTML components. One is amp img lightbox, which contains ID and layout. That's it what you want to introduce over here. Then you have an amp img, on which you have on tap. Then you have the ID of the amp image lightbox that you want to introduce, and it should actually act as a button. This image should act as a button, and then the src of image that you want to include it. So whenever somebody clicks on this image, this lightbox should. So this is the default nature of amp img lightbox. You don't need to write anything about the animations and things like that. Let's go back to our amp playground and let's see if there is a example for lightbox. Lightbox. So now the image was loading as a lazy load image, and yeah, this one has a amp img lightbox over here. What we have done, if we go into the HTML code, if you can see my screen clearly, we have a amp img lightbox right over here. Is this right example that I'm looking at? This is the Keronzo. Yeah, so we have three images back to back, and we have included amp img lightbox effect over here, and we have included the src right over here, and included the width and height, also named the layout. What is layout no display means? So actually by default, no display means that the item will be hidden by default, and responsive means it will be displayed. So no display means it won't be displayed. In this example, this is the older documentation that you are seeing that is in my deck. That is why I wanted to show the real example. So they have changed the amp lightbox to behave like amp img lightbox right over here. Yes, so Mayank, you are right. This is the right answer. So amp img lightbox right over here will, whenever you will click on this, then the lightbox example will show up. This is how the amp lightbox thing actually works. Let's go back to the deck. Where is the deck? Yeah. Cool. So this is the older way to do it. You can do this way too, and this will work fine. But now in the newer version, you can just use amp img and write lightbox right over here, the way that we saw in this code example. So again, this like teaches us to like keep update ourselves with the documentation changes, because these things change all the time, so that we use all the latest components. Cool. Then we have AMP Lightbox Gallery. This is something that we were just seeing in the example. And again, the way to do it is that we have an AMP carousel and we have included AMP IMG inside it. What is the collage icon in the Lightbox? So the collage icon is offered by default by AMP. You don't need to include this collage icon or the cross button. This is offered by default by AMP. You don't need to do anything about this. Cool, right? Everything is done by automatically. Going back to our carousel solution, so now we want to add a lightbox inside the carousel that we are including. So to do this, you have AMP IMG. Again, you have included a AMP carousel, and you have different AMP IMG inside it, and you have on slide change AMP selector toggle index inbuilt index. So what this actually means is that you are changing the way that it's okay. So do we have to define tab index for every lightbox image since there was a value 0? So it's a norm, like you have to cover up all the attributes. So let's actually go to the documentation what it says, because I want to be as sure as possible about this. Let's go to am.dev. So the component that we are looking at right now is Lightbox. So it has a supported layout of no display. This is the older way to do that again. Yeah, I don't see that tab index is the mandatory like property over here. So it's up to you if you want to use it, I guess, because they haven't mentioned it. So I think Omkar, it's up to you if you want to use it or not. Cool. So this is how you will make a carousel, and again on the select event you will add a lightbox so that it opens it as a lightbox. So to include this extended component script, you just need to use amp lightbox gallery. So this will create a beautiful effect like this that we were seeing over here, in which you have a carousel also. At the same time, you can view it as a gallery, and this is done by amp lightbox gallery. So this was about today, and let's see what we have learned today. We learned about how to handle different events and actions. We created a very beautiful sidebar that was using the on tap action to open and close the overall sidebar that we were on having on the left. And then we saw how you can collect user information by using AMP forms and how easy it is to use validation. Again, we make sure to go to amp.dev to check about AMP form component, what is the latest thing that it has to offer, and what is the different components that you have to do, and what happens if you don't find a component for you. You combine the components together to create the desired effect. Also, we see different elaborated features, what happens when you combine the component, of course, and also how different components work with each other when you combine one component inside another thing. So what is the difference between zero point 0.2 and 0.1? So you usually see over here that there are different versions of components that are coming. So this is nothing but an updated way of using that component. And it's actually what you have to consult with the documentation every time. So for example, you go to the Lightbox and there you see that it's zero point 0.1. So you have to use the zero point 0.1 script. But sometimes you would go on the same page and you will find a different version of the component. So that is what you have to use. This is not something that you have to remember all the time. Just go to the documentation and whatever version they are using, you have to use that. Lightbox right now only has zero point 0.1, I guess. There is no zero point 0.2 for the Lightbox. Let me check actually. So Lightbox, AMP Lightbox, and the required script is zero point 0.1. Yes, so it's only 0.1 right now. Again, if you want to check in the playground, this is the Lightbox example, and the script that they are using is 0.1. Cool. What else we have in our deck today? Okay, so this is now what we have built: a sidebar nested menu, and a newsletter subscription form, a thumbnail carousel that shows different images, and also a Lightbox image gallery which shows zoom in, zoom out. Now it's another thing to see everything in theory about this in the presentation, and it's another thing to actually go and try out these examples. So I have only used the AMP playground right now to show all these examples, and it should be fine for you if you want to just test out how things work on. You can write things on AMP playground and you can check it over here. But you should definitely do quick revision when you go back to home and test out how these things work in action when you do that thing.